All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Zara Baksh. I am the New York City organizer from Hand in Hand. Once again, you're going to put your names, preferred pronouns, location, and connection with care all in the chat. Welcome everyone to our webinar, Hiring a Nanny 101. This is the first one in our webinar series, and it's really exciting to have you all here. Once again, my name is Zara Baksh, and I'm the New York City organizer at Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network. We are going to be recording this webinar and share this recording with you and upload it to Hand in Hand's YouTube channel. So once again, if you all could please put your name, preferred pronouns, and neighborhood in the chat, or in the Q&A rather. Please share also if you're an employer of a nanny, house cleaner, or a home care worker, or if you're planning to hire in the near future. I'll now pass to my colleague, Tatiana.
Thank you, Sarah, and sorry about the chat that is not working, but please use the question and answer chat or function to introduce yourself and, of course, share any questions. And well, again, welcome. My name is Tatiana Bejar. I am a New York City lead organizer at Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network, and I will be your host tonight. We are happy to celebrate Women's History Month. It was just March 8th, International Women's Day, with the launch of our 2023 Education and Implementation Program, My Home is a Fair Workplace. We recognize the women on this call who are parents and domestic workers and who are the ones in charge of the care in our lives. We have prepared a series of webinars for these years, starting tonight all the way to December, with all the information you need to know about laws that apply in the domestic work sector and best practices on how to implement those laws and meet industry standards. Tonight, our webinar will cover what you need to know when hiring a nanny and how to create a work agreement with the person you employ at home. We are also going to be sharing the links as we go. I don't know if we could use the question answer function to share the links, or we will do an email afterwards with all the links that you need to have in order to ensure you access to all the resources that we have. Well, many New Yorkers hire a nanny to provide care and support for their children in their homes. Hiring a nanny is such an important decision, and we want the working relationship to be positive. Developing and maintaining clear communication is key to developing a long-lasting, mutually beneficial working relationship. And the best way to do this is through creating and maintaining a written work agreement. Additionally, many laws in New York City and New York State protect domestic workers. Because we cannot cover everything in one webinar, I really encourage you to sign up for our webinar series. We're going to be sending the link as well. Again, it's really great to have you all here tonight in our first webinar. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are. Hand in Hand is a nonprofit organization, a national network of parents who employ nannies, people who employ house cleaners, people with disabilities, and older adults and their families who employ home attendants so they can live with dignity and independence. We support domestic employers by creating materials and resources to ensure their home is a fair workplace. Our vision is to work for an economy that centers equity, dignity, and care. We believe in a care sector where domestic workers are treated with dignity and respect and honored for their vital work, supporting us as individuals, as families, and as households. In our vision, everyone can access the care and support at home they need because we want to live in a country that caregiving is valued and respected. And I am going to pass it to Donna if she's on the call. I'm not sure if she just joined or not. Do you know, Sarah? Oh, yeah, I see Donna. Hi, Donna.
I'm here. It's a different kind of Zoom experience. Hi there. Yes, Tati, I apologize. Can you hear me
Yeah.
still?
Yeah, of course. Well, we invite everyone who is not a member of Hand in Hand, especially employers of nannies, house cleaners, home attendants, people who are expecting to hire someone at home to become a member of Hand in Hand and support our work. And I want to invite Donna, who's been a long time, almost founding member of Hand in Hand, to say a few words about what it means to be a member of Hand in Hand.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. Really happy to be here and so exciting to see this program come together after all the hard work that you and Zara and others have put together. So I'm thrilled to be part of Hand in Hand after all these years since it was founding. I first got connected to the domestic workers' rights movement in the campaign for New York State's Bill of Rights. And it's just, that was over 12 years ago, and still enjoy being connected. And what I've seen over the years since Hand in Hand was first founded was just how it's just built more and more strength now as a national organization, and connecting employers with the resources they need to not only ensure that they have a fair workplace, but also to connect themselves with other resources to learn more about ways that they can even make constant improvements on workplace practices, and also be connected with others who are doing the same thing. And not only that, but it's like being connected to the resources and the education, it's building the community among other employers like oneself and taking part in these conversations. But it's also knowing that through all of this, we're contributing to a more just society, really, where we recognize the work that makes all of the work possible. So thrilled to be here. I really encourage folks who are new to Hand to check us out, learn more, get involved, show up for other things, and please join up as a member, because the resources are so valuable. And with each new member, we can do that much more and connect that much more with others. So that's what I've gotten out of being a member, and I hope others will too.
Thank you, Donna. And yeah, I don't know if we are able to share the link on how to become a member, but don't worry about it. I will follow up with you and share all the information that you need. So let's continue with the webinar. There are many things that are very confusing when we discuss best practices and understand really the domestic work sector. One of those are that people sometimes don't understand who are the domestic workers, right? Well, people who are like myself and many of you already in the care sector for a long time, we know that domestic workers, first of all, make other work possible. And they are the people who work in someone's home. They are the nannies that care for our children, the house cleaners that bring order to our home, and the care workers that ensure our loved ones can live with dignity and independence. Just in New York City, there are 200,000 domestic workers. That tells you that there are many thousands of families that depend on the care and support of domestic workers in our city. And who is an employer? Who is a domestic employer? Well, we really need to understand that needs to be extended definition, right? Obviously, someone who employs a domestic worker, someone who employs support and care, in their home. And according to a report from 2017 from Hand in Hand in partnership with the Working Institute at Cornell University and Fordham University, that there are near 2.7 million domestic employers in New York State and an estimate of 1 million in New York City. So we are talking about like a lot of houses that are part of the care sector. And that's why having these webinars, connecting with Hand in Hand as someone who is employing a domestic worker or planning to employ a domestic worker is really, really important, because we can show the government, for example, that we exist and we need guidance and we need policies and we need laws that can help us be better employers. So this evening, we are excited to have experts from the New York City Commission on Human Rights, employers of nannies who are members of Hand in Hand, and worker leaders and staff of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, who will be really sharing their experiences and the work that they they have in this sector. It is a great and diverse panel that can give us different perspectives to help employers of nannies have a home that is a fair workplace for the person they employ. Tonight, we're also going to be reviewing our nanny work agreement. We updated this work agreement actually last year because a few laws got passed in City Council a couple of years ago. We also were still facing COVID. So there are many situations and also many policies and laws in place right now that have us knowing the need to update this nanny work agreement that you could access by downloading it for free from our website. So this nanny agreement has everything that you need to know are expected for you to do as an employer of a nanny. So what is a work agreement? A work agreement is a written document that ensures you and the person you employ a shared understanding of the legal obligations, benefits, and job expectations. It is a live document because it can always change. If responsibilities change, if maybe there's new child in the family, a new pet in the family, responsibilities can also change. Laws can also get passed. There are laws that pass every year. Sometimes we don't know. At the city, local, state, and federal level that are part of the domestic work sector. So every change in the agreement needs to be part of a mutual understanding of both parts. All the benefits in these agreements cover all domestic workers, regardless of immigration status. And I want to say also that employers shouldn't feel and employers won't get penalized for hiring an undocumented worker. As you see, here is just a couple of screenshots of our almost 15 pages work agreement. It's a very comprehensive nanny agreement that we have worked on, and we have done it in partnership with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, with government agencies that also reflects the experiences of domestic employers and also workers. So this is really a document that will guide you, in the moment that you are hiring someone, or maybe you hired already someone and you want to make sure that there are clear expectations and you want to have those expectations written in a document. So I'll suggest and recommend to download this nanny agreement. We also have house cleaner agreement that you could also use if you are an employer of a house cleaner. So what do you should consider before you start drafting this work agreement? Well, it starts in the hiring process. When you find someone you want to hire as a nanny, meet with this person, share this agreement that is very detailed, making sure that it's accessible, that you review all the laws and again, city, state level. We also recommend that the person you employ together work in drafting this agreement. So since the beginning is really a equitable relationship. Also, make sure that the worker understands the agreement. There are many workers that English is not their first language, so you could make it translated, or you could also access a translated nanny agreement that we are working on in the future, probably in a couple of weeks, and we will have it in Spanish. Why it is having a work agreement is important? I think we all know that domestic work sector is a sector with mostly women of color, immigrant women work. So definitely there are power dynamics in the home when you hire someone. So having this agreement will help you address the power dynamics, right? Setting practices that are more that set respectful and open communication with the person you employ. Provides you of a workplace structure. Meet needs and expectations, again, that you have outlined and agreed upon, establishes a working relationship in your home, because as we know, there are no human resources department helping you, unless you are a celebrity, then you probably have. You have there a clear compliance with labor laws, and overall will help you improving communication and room for improvement for both parts, right? The worker and the employer as well. What is the structure of this work agreement? Again, in our nanny agreement, we have all the state and city laws and all the links that takes you to other resources, like our own resources that explain those laws, as well as government agencies that also have fact sheets about these laws. So it's important for you to understand. We know that it's very complicated to understand legal language or laws that not seem very complicated, because there are several laws that applies for someone who employs a domestic worker. But so reviewing and reading, reaching out to us as well if you have questions, of course, will help you come prepared in the moment you hire someone. This agreement have also all basic information like schedules, work hours, everything that you need detail in that document. Define wages and human resources policies as well. We know that wages change depending on the number of kids, the number of responsibilities, this designate paying time off. We know that industry standards is to provide at least 2 weeks of paid vacation for nannies, some paid holidays, including religious holidays, also provides a clear and an extended pay safe and sick leave for the person you employed, some details about COVID as well, and in overall really creates a policy to create a healthy workplace. I won't go by part because you can easily download the nanny agreement and review it by yourself, but it's just important to mention part of the agreement. So what are the legal contents in these agreements? Well, you see that it covers the most important laws, like the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, which is the basic, sets the basic standards of domestic work, actually the first one in the country, which passed in 2010 in New York State, have again paid safe and sick leave law that at least provides 5 days of paid sick leave to domestic workers. Have also that I will ask Zuleka to speak in a few minutes about the New York City human rights law, family leave. Again, I was mentioning all this different content of schedule, the members of the employer family, the kind of care that you expect for the children in your home, and also open communication. Please, if we could go to the next slide. Yeah, so we also include the hourly rates, any increase of wages every year, the pay schedule. Also should include a job termination policy that is fair, that includes severance as well. Many families really look for a nanny who could stay in the home for many years. And then when these families transition out of childcare, you want to have a fair termination policy that will really protect and give economic security for the nanny that you have employed. And definitely a letter of recommendation should also be part of that work agreement. Well, all these different parts and also, for example, having a healthy workplace, give you guidance on how to make your home a non-toxic and safe workplace, establish COVID-19 and other health emergency protocols. We know that we have been having issues in the last emergency situations in the last years. So this document again is not a document that you drafted and you forget about it. This is something that will almost your handbook, right? Your employer handbook or employee handbook, that in which you could review regularly with the person you employ to make sure that you both are following what you have committed to do, right? So next one, please. Oh, okay. So I think here we will go with Zuleka. I'm just gave you like a quick kind of review of what is the content of the nanny agreement, but there are certain laws, especially the local law 88, which means that domestic workers now are covered under the New York City human rights law, which talks about discrimination, how to create a workplace that is free from discrimination, and it's important. It's a new law, and I think it's important to really talk a little bit more in depth about this. And I'm going to invite Sulekha Prasad from the New York City Commission on Human Rights, who will be sharing a few slides and talk about this.
Thank you, Tatiana. I just wanted to do a quick time check because I know we're over. Do I still have 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just going to share my screen. Just 1 second. Okay, so protections for domestic workers. If people are here and new to this space, as of March 12th, 2022, domestic workers are now covered under the human rights law. And the human rights law very simply says that discrimination is illegal in New York City on the basis of a number of protected categories, which we'll go over. I loosely call them identity factors, but they're protected as a number of those identity factors. So anyone who is employed, a domestic worker in New York City is an employer now. Domestic workers have the right to be free from discrimination and harassment. Domestic workers are protected against retaliation, and we'll go over that. And then domestic workers have the right to reasonable accommodations. That's like a fancy word to basically say that you have an obligation as an employer to come up with ways to work with your employee in case they have a disability, or they may be pregnant, or they have other issues. And I'll give you some examples of that in just a minute. So here are the protected categories, as I had said earlier. How are domestic workers covered? Well, they're protected on the basis of all of these factors. So an employer is not allowed to discriminate on the basis of any of these, either perceived or actual perception of age, whether or not they think they're older or younger, they can't be discriminated against them. Whether they think they're of a certain color, creed, religion, credit history, whether or not they think they're in debt, whether or not they think they have a disability or they may not have a disability, whether they think they're of a certain religion or may not be of a certain religion. These are all of the protected categories for domestic workers. You'll also see unemployment status, and this also covers undocumented workers. So if you're hiring an undocumented worker, you're also not allowed to discriminate against them on the basis of any of these other factors. And also the interesting part about our law is that it's intersectional. So a domestic worker can experience one discrimination while also being discriminated against as a perceived or actual status of another. So they could be experiencing religious discrimination and at the same time being discriminated against because someone thinks that they're undocumented. So those are protections that domestic workers have here in New York City. Employers cannot treat a domestic worker less well because of their membership in a protected class. And this includes decisions regarding hiring, pay, privileges and benefits, discipline, and firing. So here are just some quick examples of how you may see discrimination. Employers cannot use language that suggests the position is open to members of a particular protected class. So seeking Chinese nanny, seeking Christian nanny versus, seeking Chinese speaking nanny, or seeking a nanny familiar with Christian observances. So, you're naming the person and then the qualification, right? So you're really just trying to name the qualification and not trying to get their identity or probing for the person's identity, because that's none of anyone's business, right? Whether a person identifies as something is not something you can be hiring for. You can be hiring for them speaking a certain language or their familiarity with a particular religion, but you wouldn't be able to hire them because they are Christian or because they are a specific ethnic identity or religious identity. If you have any questions about that later, we can go over that later. And employers must provide domestic workers with written notice of their rights regarding sexual harassment. This is really important. This is something that employers are obligated to do under the law. So they have to provide them the written notice of their rights. They also have to post the notice in English and Spanish in their home And then employers must ensure that domestic workers receive annual trainings on protections against gender-based harassment. So I'm just going to pivot for just one quick second. I'm going to exit out of here if I can. And I'm going to show you our website. Can everybody see my screen okay? Okay, good. So here's our website. It's nyc.gov/human rights or /CCHR. And you can go to resources and media. You can go all the way down.
I'm sorry, Suleika.
Yeah.
You can only see your screen for the PowerPoint, not your screen for the website. Sometimes it freezes. Just stop the share and then just open up the website, and then it'll refresh for you.
Okay. Do you see it now?
Now you're not sharing. Go ahead and try sharing.
I'm going to share again. Okay. Ah, got it. Yep. I think it's now pivoted. Yeah. Okay. Can we see it now? Great. Okay. So when you're on here, you can just scroll down here, and there is a domestic workers one pager here. It's in English and in Spanish. There are several other languages. And then you can go back. This is a very good comprehensive review of what domestic workers are given, the rights that they are afforded under our law. Also, you can hit fact sheets, which is right here. And you can scroll down. There's a number of other protected categories. Don't get freaked out. This is all really important information, you know, anti-Black racism, bias-based profiling by law enforcement. All of these can come up for domestic workers, but, you know, we're concerned about here. Caregiver status is also here. And then we can scroll down to domestic workers. So domestic workers have their own page because we have a number of fact sheets in different languages here. We also have our brochures in English and in Spanish. If you think that there's another language that you want us to focus on, you can definitely email me or call me, and I'd be happy to take that information from you. So I just wanted to go over that. And the last thing that I just want to say is that if you do, when you want to give your employee rather, the sexual harassment training, you can also do that here. And so that's another option for you if that's something that you're interested in, and we can go over that too. Okay, so that's it for me. I'll pass it back to you. Let me just do my stop share.
Thank you, Suleika.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is great. And there is, yeah, your website have a lot of great information for workers, but also for employers, right? And this is, again, this is the sector, right? When you see government agencies, domestic worker organization, employer organizations, and their members working together, this is what we are. And this is working together is what we have been improving this, the care sector for the last years, and just recently winning a budget initiative in City Council in which give us workers and employer organizations now with the capacity to do employer outreach and education, and also domestic worker organizations do the same with workers. Did you make me co-host?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I want to see if I can fix the chat because I don't understand why it's not working. Oh, here, everyone. Can everyone now use it? Or it still is just, you cannot see? Well, if you can try it, maybe worth it. Okay, when we end the screen sharing, yeah, well, we're gonna then now have a kind of quick dialogue. I think this is always great to hear directly from the employers who are actually implementing these policies at home, from the workers, or organizations, from the workers as well, and some people who have been working and really some of the experts in the sector. So I'm gonna start with Liz, our hand-in-hand member. I want to ask Liz, how has been your experience at home using a work agreement? And if you want to introduce yourself also.
Sure. Hi, I'm Liz Weiner. I've been a hand-in-hand member since 2021. And I've got two little kids, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I employ a nanny and a house cleaner. So I think I've really enjoyed having, I guess, having a work agreement. I think one of the things that was most helpful for me was that when I was starting out in this, I didn't know what the expectations were. Like I'd never been an employer before. I mean, I manage people at work, but we have HR and they deal with all of that. So it was really helpful to me. We worked from a template. And I know Hand in Hand has templates available, and the National Domestic Workers Alliance has templates available. There are a lot floating around. I really like the Hand in Hand template because I think it sort of takes into consideration the interests of both parties, but it was really helpful for me because it really walked through a lot of things that I hadn't necessarily thought about, never having employed someone in my home before, right? So there were just like a lot of considerations that they come up when they come up, but the work agreement really helped me to think about like, what were my expectations and what would my nanny be expecting of me in all of these different situations. So it helped, I feel like, just like set us off on the right foot to have gone through that, and for me to have gone through it, and then to talk about together, like, what do you do if someone's running late in the morning or at the end of the day, right? Like, how do you communicate about that? And what do you do? Like, what's too often, obviously like things happen, right? But understanding like what's not okay on either end. Like if my nanny were late all the time in the morning, that would be a problem. And if I were late coming home all the time in the evening, that would also be a problem. And just sort of establishing those things to be fair in both directions and to meet everybody's needs in both directions, and things like vacation time and sick time, and like with things like that, it was me thinking through like, okay, well, what am I going to do when my nanny takes a vacation for a week? Like, do I call my mom or do I ask for whatever, but like planning ahead for how I would cover that time. Or if it was a sick day, like making sure I have enough time in my sick bank that I can take a day off if she can't be there. So just like, it was really helpful to me to think through all of those different scenarios, because I think for a lot of people, especially who are hiring childcare workers, who are hiring nannies, it's like a first time and you've never done this before and you don't really know all the things that might come up. And these work agreements, the templates are really comprehensive, so they really help you walk through like, what are the things that tend to be sticking points in these relationships, and what are the things that tend to like cause conflict, or maybe it's not even outright conflict, right? But somebody's unhappy and cause dissatisfaction in the relationship, either on the employer part or the employee part. And if you can get ahead of that and just both be on the same page, then I don't know, I haven't run into a lot of problems, and I credit a lot of that to the fact that we really like sat down and talked through a lot of these things at the beginning. And then we also sort of check in periodically and make sure everything's like still makes sense. Like when we added school drop-offs, because when we started, there wasn't school, right? Or like, I'm having another baby, like we'll sit down and go through like, what does that look like? Because all of that is a change in role, a change in responsibility for her, and making sure that we're on the same page about it.
Thank you, Liz, for also be such a proactive employer and a good employer. I want to, before going to Marisa, I want to quickly ask Amalia. Amalia has been used to work at the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection and an expert on the pay, safe and sick leave. And many of the conversation we had before is that why it's so complicated, right, for employers to understand this particular law. Maybe you want to share some reflections about that?
Sure, thank you for having me here. Good to be surrounded with all these wonderful advocates. So paid safe and sick leave, it can be complicated if you're in New York City and then outside of New York City, and you may not know like what laws apply to you, especially because many domestic employers don't know that there is a paid safe and sick leave law that applies to domestic workers. So it's all just about getting educated and reading up on it and then enforcing it in your own home. So the most important part is to have a communication, is to actually talk with the person that you employ about what happens if they get sick. We're all humans. we're still in COVID-19. People are still getting sick. It's important to be able to access those days. It's nobody's fault that they get sick. And also, it's not just when they get sick, it's also when they have a family member or anybody that they consider a family member and they get sick, to be able to take a day off without fearing if they're going to get fired or not. So it's just important to build that communication and that trust. And actually, the New York City government, the Department of Consumer Affairs and Worker Protection has a one sheet, like a one paper that summarizes everything that employers and workers need to know about paid safe and sick leave, so it's not overwhelming. So you want to know that domestic workers get up to 40 hours of paid safe and sick leave or more. You want to be more generous. That's just the minimum. Also that it's paid, because other laws say that they get unpaid, they have unpaid days, but paid. In New York City, in Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, in the Bronx, all the 5 boroughs, they get paid safe and sick leave. So you want to be able to talk about that, how they're going to take it, and what your plan B is. What happens if the worker that you employ gets calls out and it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you have to go to work, like if they had an emergency and they're calling out, like, what is your plan B? Like, what's going to happen? So it's good to know, like, if you plan ahead of time, what to do, and if they let you know, like, listen, I have a doctor's appointment in 2 weeks, I'm going to need this day off, plan ahead. And be understanding about that. Again, like, we all get sick. It's important to make sure that workers have access to those days and that you're communicating about how they get used, when they get used. So that's important.
Thank you, Amalia. I want to ask Marisa, and Marisa, if you could also introduce yourself, because I know we are kind of running out of time, but I think it's very important for you to share with all your experience in the domestic work sector is how does a work agreement help domestic workers?
Hi, everybody. I am Marisa Centeno. I am the New York chapter director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And, we're so proud to be in partnership with Hand in Hand, the Domestic Worker Employer Network. And we represent the thousands upon thousands of domestic workers who are nannies, caregivers, house cleaners. So thinking about domestic work and being a domestic employer really like can encompass many different stages of one's life. And so when we're also considering like who are domestic workers, the majority of whom are women, this is care work, and as like the work of being cared for isn't one that is like highly valued in society, we need to understand that like as employers, like we're also making a comment or placing that value not only on like the work that often women and mothers have to provide within their own homes, but as professionals, as people who come into your home as a workspace. I think it's been really interesting to see throughout the pandemic that people have come to comprehend the definition of like workspace can also include one's own home. Like we're all working from home through this pandemic. Well, nannies, house cleaners, and caregivers have been working from your home this entire time. And so thinking about like, what does that mean when you enter this like social professional contract, right? It's a social contract because they're working with your family, but it's a professional one because they're working with your family. And having a contract really is like one that opens up the conversation around expectations, but also around like what is a fair workplace. Someone had mentioned before, like thinking about the inevitabilities, right? It is inevitable that people will need to take sick days or go to the doctor. It is inevitable that there might be like a need for on both sides kind of emergency responses of like, oh my gosh, I need to like pick up the kid from said location at a different time and space. And then so what is the social contract and what is the professional contract that comes with that? And when you have something to kind of lean back on, right, to refer to, it opens not only that conversation, but it like this mutual understanding. There isn't that confusion, because you want to be able to have a caregiver, a nanny for the duration of the time that is needed, right? It's really stressful to lose a nanny because a family decided to take 2 weeks vacation and that nanny had to find alternate employment, right? And now it can take up to a month to find an alternate nanny, right? And sometimes we need to work through conflicts. Not all conflict is bad, but it is a form of communication, right? And when you have this contract, your work agreement, it is something that both parties can like point to and say, look, we agree to this pay, we agree to these work standards, and let's have a conversation moving forward. And it also allows for you as the employer to really establish a sort of like growth within yourself as like as an employer of a nanny, of a caregiver, of a house cleaner, so that not only is the value of the worker um, really kind of front and center, but then you also value your own time and work and effort, as being the one who also provides care and establishes, organizing your own household. So I think that for the worker side, um, as workers who really use contracts and agreements as a means to understand like where is the family placing their values, where are you, what are the parameters of the workspace, how can they then plan for the future of their employment. It really provides that sort of like structure under which like both parties can really have like an ongoing working relationship and one that really benefits the family as a whole.
Thank you, Marisa, for all those recommendations and sharing what workers also share with you. And without, we don't want to leave without asking Meches, who's actually a fantastic nanny, to share how is that working as a nanny with or without a work agreement has been with you or for you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Meches. Well, I've been a nanny for the past 17 years of my life. And as in the beginning, I didn't have contracts. That was before the Bill of Rights, and that was in the style in that time, no? And now that I do, it's so amazing to have a contract because you have a specific what you have to do and everything. And also it's because the most amazing is because you sit with your employer and you talk about, because I feel like this is a professional like any other profession. And when you sit and do a contract, you feel like that. And you're giving the value and the professionalism that is supposed to be having this career. And then when you take the time to sit and we chit chat and we say, well, this, well, not. And the another good thing about the contract is that we can be honest to each other about how we're going to do with all the stuff and what you like and what you don't like. And one as a nanny I don't like to do and stuff like that. And it's being an amazing thing to have a contract, for example. And also another good part is being so honest with each other. Be honest. If you want to hire a nanny, for example, you need a nanny just for 2 months because you are waiting for the daycare. Be honest and say, I need a temporary nanny. Don't come and say, oh, you're going to have a job for the rest of your life. And then in 2 months, you're fighting her. No, that's not, I don't think that's fair. Because I will say in my experience the best relationship I have with my employers is the ones that were honest since the beginning. And we sit and we did the contracts. And they say, Mitchell, we can give you a year full-time nanny, and then after the year we will see, because the kids will go to full-time school. And I say, okay, that's not a problem. And I still in communication with these people and with these employers and these families, and that's being amazing. And also the another thing with the contracts is it's not the Bible or something like that you cannot change, no? I always recommend that every 6 months you should have a review with your nannies about the contract and what you're doing, because you know the life of the kid change in 6 months is completely different, and then the responsibilities are completely different in 6 months, and then that's how you should do a review of the contract. And if the nanny is doing more than what she start doing, and maybe you can do a little bit of raise. Sí. But the contracts is beneficial for both parties. It's not just for the nannies. The employers get the benefit too, because in the contract you can say, okay, if you are not happy, you want to go, you have to give us 2 weeks. And the same way, if you want to fire the nanny because things happen, that you have to give 2 weeks too. But all these things, and talk and be honest with each other. Be honest and say, because sometimes it's like the employer goes, you walk the dog, and it's like, no, I don't doing that. So example like that, but being honest from the beginning, because sometimes in the beginning you're so desperate for a nanny, and you were hired, and maybe you weren't happy because you didn't sit and talk to the nanny, and then having contracts is the best.
Thank you, Meches. And I think this is exactly what we want, right? Honesty. And this is what we also expect in our own jobs, right? For an employer to be honest. And I think that's the very, very first step of a healthy, long-lasting employment relationship. And that's what we want. We want nannies who can, stay work for a long time, because they also develop these emotional relationships with your children, right? Think about that too. I don't know if Rhea is back. If I know that. Okay, Rhea, hey. Yeah, so maybe last questions. I know some people are staying, and I think this is really the most important part of the webinar, is again hearing directly from people who are there working as nannies or also employing nannies. Rhea, you're also a nanny employer. Do you have any tips you want to share of maybe what steps you take before starting drafting a work agreement?
Right. So hi, I'm Rhea. I have 2 kids. I live in Queens. I'm an employer of a nanny named Lupe, and also a house cleaner. I used a template. This was my first attempt at a template, was before I knew about hand in hand. I think I might have used the care.com one. But basically, I had asked a friend of mine who was a nanny, like, what she thought was fair. And she said, well, if it's what you would expect in your job, then you should offer that. And so like I just pulled out my employment contract and I went down the line and I said, okay, these are going to be the holidays and this is going to be the sick leave policy. I figure if it's the kind of job I would want and I would take, then it's the kind of job I want to offer.
Thank you, Rhea. And I remember also when COVID happened, Rhea and many other employers continue paying the nannies while they were staying home and were safe, because that's what their job were doing with them too, right? Exactly. Their own jobs were continue paying them. So they continue paying their nannies. So I think having what Rhea is so important is what you expect your own job, your own employer, the benefits that you expect from your employer. This is the same benefits you should be providing to the people you employ at home. Thank you to all the wonderful people in this panel. I know they are like even past our time, but we will again continue having webinars once a month until December. We probably have a couple of breaks. I know summer, most people go on vacation, and then also the holiday season that starts in November, we'll take another break. But Again, sign up to join the education program so you will get information constantly about how you make your home affair workplace. And again, if we could go to the slides, Sarah, please become a member of Hand in Hand. Again, join this community of wonderful people. You'll have information that you need throughout the year. We work with your support. We create more resources, materials, and without your support, we cannot do it, right? So we know that employers need guidance to do the right thing, and doing education work, that these webinars are important to build a caring community where employers and domestic workers really get access of all the information they need. And we invite you to also join our next webinar. It's going to be very soon on March 30th. We know this is tax season, and there may be so many questions for employers about how to do during tax season, when you employ a nanny, house cleaner, or maybe a home care worker or home attendant at home. You see there is the link to sign up. We will also send it by email. And thanks again for joining tonight and staying until almost 9 p.m. Thank to our panelists. Thanks, Sarah, for the technical support. We'll promise next time we'll have the chat working well, and we'll have a great night and enjoy the nice weekend. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Marissa.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, Ahuba, you have a question?
Yeah, their hand is raised. Ahuba?
Oh, I don't know. Good night, everyone.